So I'm going to show you why 95% of amateur golfers can't create that PGA Tour wrist angle that you see out on the telly, with those hands coming up and over this way, club releasing through, and why we see these crumbled positions on the way through, which result in just horrible drives and iron shots. I've got 3 tips I'm going to share with you today. The last tip is an actual skill building crucial idea. So it's more than a tip. It's a way for you to kind of build this skill into every part of your game. May it be a driver or an iron that you want to hit longer and straighter. Remember, if you like the information in this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Question of the day for today's video: what's the best golf tip you've ever received? So best golf tip you've ever received in your life. Oh, don't be a line ball. That's a line ball. Oh, yeah. Close. So tip number 1 is here. The grip. It has to be in this part of your palm. The club has to sit through this part of your palm. We've got to get away from golfers putting it through this part of their palm. Handle high, club through this part of your palm, creates really weak arm conditions and then really weak impacts that make it impossible to get that glove flipping, this club out the bottom of the top of the trail hand. You're going to always come through this way. So we need to establish a hold where the club gets through the right part of your palm. This is going to give you much better range of movement this way and this way, which, believe it or not, is what you're after. If we break it down, it's kind of around this amount of movement. What we've seen with amateurs is we see a little bit of movement, buckle, bend, and then we see these follow throughs on the way through. So what I want you to do, just place the club out to the side of you, so parallel to your feet line. Point the toe end of the club into the air, or even slightly inclined down to the ground. Point your fingers down at your toes and then grab on this way. What this does is it lines the club up with this part of your palm, and then as you wrap around, it'll just slightly move up into the base of your palm, top of that first finger, to give you a good solid hold, which is basically going to allow for much better release conditions, which are going to give you those powerful, straighter shots. But it's not just in your hand, you've also got to think about your arm structure. So once you've got your lead hand onto the club, just make sure this lead shoulder is slightly pushed forward at address. We don't want it back in its socket back here with your hand kind of wrapped around to the left side. So once you've got a good grip, we want almost a little bit of space between the top of your club, top of your chest. Just pull this, which will make you turn your arm in a really positive way, again, which will allow for more of this movement. Then with the trail arm, we want to try and make sure that we're not pointing this crease in our arm towards the target. You want it turned out more towards the front cameras here, which again is going to allow for much more rotation and movement in this trail arm. The more people get this crease pointed at the target, which is so common, we're going to get these kind of follow throughs, which we see time and time again. So it's your arm structure. So trail arm, point this crease a little bit more out in front of you. Lead arm, just try and get this shoulder slightly forward and off the chest, which will just move your arm almost this way a little bit as your hand doubles back. And it's these movements that are going to give us great release patterns, which are going to start really allowing you to get strikes that you've not felt before. Tip number 2. So in a golf swing, what we see from better players is we see arm rotation. So if I take my lead arm, we're going to see rotations that move kind of a long way this way to then a long way this way. So let's think about arm rotation. If we take lead hand and lead arm, you're going to find that from good players, what we see is we see a lot of rotation, like 100 degrees worth of rotation on the way back. So if we're kind of in this position, this obviously would be 90, so they're going a bit more than that on the way back. So they're rotating their arm. So if your arm had like a laser shooting out of it, you're going to see it rotating over 100 degrees. Then on the follow through, you're also going to see it rotate over 100 degrees that way. So there's a big range of movement. And what we see from amateurs is not big ranges of movement where they're not really getting this rotation in there. So I want to give you a drill to make sure you are getting that rotation in there. So start with a really weak hold. I want you to see no to 1 knuckles on lead hand. And I want you even to get the club through the wrong part of your palm for this exercise. Now from this position, I want you to hold the club out in front of you and then just hinge the club up so we've got a 90-degree angle from here. And I want you to feel that you're rotating your arm this way and then in turn, this way. And what you're going to notice is my arm starts to bend. because I'm not in a really good position to do that. It's such a weak hold, which is why we addressed the hold at the start, that the right amount of rotation just feels ridiculously uncomfortable. Now what I want you to do is the same idea, but from this position. I now want you to hold the club in the better part of your palm and see a good 2 to 3 knuckles on this lead hand when you look down. Now from here, feel the contrast in that movement as you flip it over. I don't feel like my shoulder and my arm have to get involved. I feel very much like I can just do it. I've got the range of movement from this position. So now what I want you to do is I want you to flip it forward this way, put your trail hand on, lean over like you're going to hit a golf shot, so trail shoulder lower than lead, and look what we're seeing on the way through. We're starting to see that pro style release. This is going to give you the feeling of where you want to get to. Once you've got that feeling, so from here and you feel that it's kind of shooting up this way, your hands pointing at the back of the wall, your arms rotated over this way, so it's rotated. I want you to hit a few shots where you feel like you're going to hold that follow through, half backswing, half follow through, and I want you to feel where you finish at this point. So are you here? Or have you released that arm? Have you rotated it? And a really good checkpoint for you to see if you are getting that rotation in is try and feel like the butt end of the club. Now this is slightly an extreme move. It's more than what we see from good players, but it's a good way of practicing to extreme. Point the butt end of the club at the ball, so where the ball was. So feel like this is coming down and shooting down at the ball. So obviously if you're someone who's without the arm rotation, it's going to be shooting off over here. So I'm going to just hit one out in front of me. I'm just going to try and kind of pull that back a little bit, went a bit too far, so down to where the ball was. Do that again, slightly smaller on the way through. So what you're going to find is the rotation this way will feel natural when you're trying to get into a rotation on the way through. There. And it's that rotation of the arm as the wrist hinges up that's going to give you those tour style releases that you're seeing. Making sure that grip is in a position set up to allow you to do this with your lead arm. Then actually practicing doing that with your shots, little chips out in front of you where you hold that follow through position. It's really going to allow you to get the feeling of how those arms rotate. And then we're going to start building the foundations of that really strong impacts and shots that you want, again with the right shape. Now remember, if you like the information in this video, hit the like button. Answer that question for me down below. So what's the best golf tip you've ever received? I'd love to hear. And this last tip is the key to making the first two work better for you and the key to building the skill of release. So not the technique, the actual skill that's involved that you'll find good players are actually using from shot to shot, round to round. So you notice I've got something on my hand now, on my wrist. This is called HackMotion. And this device is going to measure the rotation, how my wrists work, and how they hinge. It's going to give me data on how my arm and wrist is working. And I'm going to use this to try and demonstrate how you need to start practicing to try and hit better shots, moving now through ranges of movement. Meaning, I want you now to hit a few shots. So I want you to hit a couple where you try and turn the face down to the ground in last parallel. So as you're coming down in to hit the ball, feel like you're turning face down to the ground in last parallel, which would be hinging this wrist. You can see on the screen there, see how my flexion is increasing. So this would be extension, this is flexion, so where I'm bowing that wrist down. So I want you to hit a few shots where you turn into last parallel with that wrist turned too much down to the ground. You might see a certain shot, which is fine. Then I want you to hit a shot where you try and turn that wrist up to the ground. So you can see I'm 30 something extension, face is more angled up to the sky. And I want you to hit a shot. We're going to see contrasting shots, high right to low left. Which ones do you hit when you practice or play? The high right's the common one. And that's because my wrist is working the wrong way. So the key skill, the builder for you, which is what HackMotion is obviously showing here, is that good players can move through these ranges of movement. So where lots of you at home are thinking about what's the right range of movement, you need to start thinking about how much can you move through different ranges of movement. Then you will gain the control, the control over your shots that you're after. You won't just be hanging on to one good shot out of 10. As soon as you hit a bad shot the wrong way, you might have some ideas of how to move your wrist. And make sure your forearm is rotating to allow you to move the wrist, because as this arm rotates, that wrist is easier to turn down. If this arm isn't rotating, which it isn't for lots of golfers, it makes loads of sense just to extend it and try and recover shots this way. Who hasn't seen that position from their friends at impact? So it will give you the ideas of going from too big a turn down to not enough turn down, to then thinking where is in between that, and that's where the skill of hitting the straighter one between the two that I hit there to order comes. This is the skill you should be practicing. There's a time to try and get it right, but there's also a key time to try and work through feelings, too much and too little, to find where right is. HackMotion is an amazing tool. Discount code coming up here if it's something you think would help your practice. It's basically going to help you understand how your wrist movements work. Use this code for a discount, and it's also in the description down below. Probably one of the best teaching aids on the market. If you're someone struggling to feel rotations, how your wrists are working, this is how you should be hitting shots on the range, and certainly a portion of your shots that you hit on the range. So first idea, I'm going to try and get my club to release too much, so too much rotation in my lead arm, kind of as much as I can. You can see I've really flicked this club over, and you see I've turned the ball left. So if the arm rotation is enough to help you manipulate the flight of the golf ball, which for some of you it will be, then where I've done one where I've tried to flip it loads, do another one where you don't try and flip it hardly at all, just push it more out towards the target. Look how that creates a push cut. Both of those shots I've hit on a golf course on purpose. The hook round the tree, the push cut to try and kind of just hit a aim left and push cut it into a target to make it land soft. That was just by big rotation with my arm, no rotation with my arm. Now if you find that doesn't move the needle for you, this is where you should be using that HackMotion idea of moving your wrist in 3 different ways. That was an alarm, but we're all right, we're all safe. So last parallel turn club down to the ground, hit your shot, see it turning left, so that's moving the needle for me, and then the next one I'm going to turn it up to the sky, hit it, move it off to the right, that's moving the needle for me, and then that skill is finding that middle ground. All these tips together, so you can use a combination of or mix them up together, wrist and release of the arm, is what's going to allow you to control club face, which will allow you to hit straighter, longer shots more consistently. Now if you want to find out how far you should be hitting your driver, for instance, this video's got all the information you need.